Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a massive question. Is all of human history just one big random accident? Or is there a hidden code, a predictable pattern that's been shaping everything from the very first stone tools to the device you're watching this on right now? We're about to find out, using a tool that's powerful but also surprisingly simple.
Okay, let's really get into it. Think about it for a second. The rise and fall of empires, the huge technological leaps we've made. Is there a method to the madness, or is it all just a chaotic jumble of chance and lucky breaks?
Yeah, because at first glance, history just looks messy, right? If you just throw a few different societies up on a board, say the Romans, the Inca, the Iroquois, and you list some of their big achievements, it's just a jumble. There's no clear pattern here at all. It's kind of like a junk drawer of facts.
But what if I told you there's a tool that can actually find a secret order in all that chaos? It's something called Guttman scaling, and honestly, the idea behind it is so simple, it's brilliant.
So what is it? Basically, Guttman scaling is just a clever way of sorting yes or no information. The whole point is to see if some things have to happen before other things can happen. If they build on each other in a logical order, just like steps on a staircase.
Let me give you a really simple example to make this stick. Think about math. It's totally cumulative, right? There is no way you're going to solve a quadratic equation if you haven't learned how to add first. And you can't add if you don't even know what numbers are. Each skill is a building block for the next one.
So, following that idea, if we just, ask a few people about these math skills, the answers we get might look all jumbled up at first, just like that history table we saw earlier. We've got our data here for 3 different people, but yeah, it's a mess. We can't really see a pattern. But check this out. Watch what happens. All we're going to do is reorder the people and the skills. We're not changing any of the yes or no answers. And boom, a perfect stair-step pattern just pops out. It shows us that there was a hidden logic in the data the whole time. Now, it's really important to get this. This isn't some kind of magic trick. You can't just force this to happen. If you tried this with something totally random, like flipping a coin a bunch of times, you could shuffle that data around forever, and you would never get this beautiful, clean staircase. The pattern has to actually be in the data to begin with.
Okay, so here's the million-dollar question. Can this tool, this Guttman scale that works so perfectly for something logical like math, can it possibly reveal a similar hidden pattern in the huge, messy, sprawling story of human history?
All right, let's go back to our messy table of societies. This is exactly what the anthropologist Robert Carneiro did in some really famous research. He took tons of data just like this. We're talking hundreds of different cultural features across a whole bunch of different societies.
And you're not gonna believe what he found. Once he rearranged everything, the exact same stair-step pattern showed up. This is massive. It's this incredible piece of evidence that suggests human societies, for the most part, tend to develop these big cultural milestones in a very similar, almost predictable order.
And get this, the order the scale spits out isn't just some random fluke. It actually matches up pretty darn well with the real historical timeline from archaeology. Things like permanent settlements and having extra food, those come first way back when. Then you see social classes emerge. And way later, you finally get stuff like iron tools. The math matches the history.
This is where it gets really powerful, because this pattern is actually predictive. It means that if you know just one thing about a society, like its most advanced technology, let's say they have iron tools, you can make a really good guess that they also have all the stuff that comes before it on the scale. You can bet they have food surpluses and social classes. It's almost like a roadmap for how cultures grow.
Okay, but let's be real. History is complicated. It's messy. So the pattern can't be 100% perfect all the time, right? So what about the exceptions? What happens when the pattern breaks?
Well, scientists actually have a way to measure just how perfect the pattern is. It's got a fancy name, the coefficient of reproducibility, but all it is really is a score between 0 and 1. A perfect 1.00 means your data fits that stair-step shape flawlessly.
And this is what's so wild. When researchers run these studies on cultural evolution, the score they get is almost always above 0.90. Think about that. That means the pattern is over 90% accurate. That is an incredibly strong signal telling us that no, history is not just a bunch of random events.
The funny thing is, the parts where the pattern isn't perfect, the little errors, are just as interesting. They tell their own unique stories. For example, a society might skip a step because they just don't have the right resources. The Maya are a great example. They never really developed wheeled vehicles because they didn't have big animals like horses or oxen to pull them. Or maybe a culture jumps ahead a few steps because they learned a new trick from their neighbors. So these errors are really just the unique twists and turns in each culture's personal story.
Okay, so let's pull all of this together. What does this whole thing really mean? What is this Guttman scale telling us about the code of human culture?
Well, what it lets us do is see that history kind of unfolds along two different kinds of paths. On one hand, you have what you could call a universal path. These are the things that scale really well, the big steps that pretty much every culture takes in a similar order. But then you have the unique paths. These are the things that don't scale, the things that are specific to a culture because of its environment, its neighbors, or just the choices its people made.
So the big takeaway here is pretty profound. While every single culture is unique and has its own fascinating story, the main highway of human development, especially with technology and society, isn't random at all. It follows a pretty logical, predictable sequence for a very simple reason. Knowledge builds on itself. You just can't invent the light bulb before you've figured out electricity. You have to learn to walk before you can run. And that just leaves us with this one last kind of mind-bending thought. If a tool this simple can find so much order in something as huge and chaotic as all of human history, it just makes you wonder, right? What other hidden patterns are out there in the world? In economics, in fashion, in the way ideas spread online, what other codes are just waiting for someone to find the right key?